Robert Arcos, Chief Deputy, and Deanna Carlisle, Human Resources Manager, Probation Department, will make a presentation. Dr. Lisa Wong, Director of Mental Health, Dr. Christina Galley, Director of Health Services, Michael O, Director of Internal Services, Lisa Garrett, Director of Personnel, David Carroll, Director of Youth Development, Dr. Barbara Ferrer, Director of Public Health, and Mario Marcos, Chief of School Support and Transformation, Los Angeles County Office of Education, will be available for questions. For the departmental speakers, please state your name and title for the record when you address the board.
Okay.
Okay, Supervisor Horvath.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I did want to record my I vote on the previous item.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a presentation that you'd like to get into?
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Robert Arcos, Chief Deputy Operations. First, I'd just like to extend my apologies. Chief Vieira Rosa was here and he was called away on a personal matter, and he sends his apologies. Myself and Deanna Carlisle are here. We do have a presentation, and consistent with what Chief Vieira Rosa has done in the past is he's kind of skimmed through these, but I can go through each slide if that would be helpful. We have a status update on the department depopulation plan and receivership hearings, the mutual aid on local law enforcement status, the community supervision model, updates on the OIG recommendations, and metrics in hiring and recruitment. Are those the slides for today? If it's okay with you, I'll just kind of go through each slide without having to go through the PowerPoint for you. Just a quick update on our receivership hearings that we had last week. They were held on May 8th, 2026 and May 14th, and they focused on use of force and OC spray. The monitor, Mr. Michael Dempsey, was the witness for the state on this case. Although there are a number of things that he mentioned are still in the works and need some improvement, he did comment many times in the hearings on really noticeable improvement in the response to use of force, noticeable improvement in OC decontamination policies and protocols, and really the metrics on which we're starting to track the incidents in our facilities, and the team that is responsible for reviewing these and making corrective actions and suggested training around those incidents. There was nothing significant on the depopulation plan update other than at our order to show cause hearing with Judge Espinosa, he did ask for a review of Dorothy Kirby Center for the ability to receive predisposition youth that are developmentally disabled for an evaluation of that. So we're going through that process right now. It would be a very significant need for improvements of Dorothy Kirby to take on predisposed youth in order to comply with BSCC. So we're awaiting that report on just what that looks like for cost. Yeah. No, I told him I wasn't going to do that. Okay. I have a great partner back there, David Carroll from DYD. That's okay. All right. An update on the mutual aid and law enforcement was provided. As you know, we started this agreement that the board supported close to a year ago. In that time, we have about 11 active agencies participating in the MOU and reporting to LA Impact as a fiduciary steward of the MOU, reporting back on their results and effectiveness. Myself and our Deputy Director for Campus Safety and Security, Darren Arakawa, presented at the LA County Chiefs Retreat in Palm Springs several weeks ago, and again encouraged the engagement in this MOU and received some feedback on some things that would make things a little bit more easier for them. But in short and in summary, some of the things that are creating some obstacles for them are resources. Each of the local law enforcement agencies are dealing with their own resources, their own priorities, and in some cases, the reimbursement goes straight to their general fund, so there's not a cost benefit for them getting it back to the department. So those are primarily some of the reasons, but we have had some positive results from the contact that they are making in the field. As of this last quarter, 361 compliance checks and just over 129 in compliance, and new violations 27. So we'll continue to manage and monitor the work that they're doing and maintain that relationship that we have with our local law enforcement partners that are conducting this. An update on the community supervision model. I was privileged enough to sit with Chief Vieira last week with Judge Tapia, the presiding judge, who asked for a little bit more feedback on what the community supervision model looks like. With this new normal for LA County Probation, the chief undertook a very extensive reorganization of the department, as you know, to make sure that we were shoring up the staffing that was needed in our facilities. So it really did decrease the number of available field staff. So we had to rethink that model and think differently about how we approach community supervision. We have about 100 officers. We removed the special enforcement officers from that single purpose, and now they are incorporated into community supervision, assigned to the field offices throughout LA County. What the chief has really cited a number of times is the national model and best practices really call for community supervision to be conducted in the home by a probation officer. That is where you really have the best assessment of what the structure and support system looks like for the client, and also the immediate identification of what referral needs they have. LA County Probation in the past has used much more contacts through office visits, which is still a nice to have, but it really doesn't give a good full picture and assessment of the needs of the client. This is why he has pushed to this best practice, and we believe that we will have better results, even though there are some concerns on maybe the size of the supervision model. We think that we can be more effective when we are in the home making these assessments, and the goal is once we are notified of the probationer's address, that we will make these visits within the first 30 days. And those are the metrics that we're going to capture, is the number of home visits we're making within the first 30 days, and the results, what type of referrals are being provided, working with our partners in the county, also to make sure that they're getting those services provided to them as well. There's an update. I think we spoke last time about the OIG recommendations on detention reports, and our Director of Intake, Director Cesar Marroquin, has been very diligent and engaged with the court, with Judge Espinosa, on these court reports receiving the LAD scores. And we have a date scheduled for June 30th as a date that we'll start utilizing the LAD scores in the court reports. It's going to go with, just for reference, this Thursday, I'm also meeting with Director Marroquin and Judge Espinosa to talk about the model of the training that's going to be provided to the bench officers, and just what it means, what these LAD scores do mean for their assessments in court. So we're really excited about that happening. It's something that we have definitely agreed with the OIG on that recommendation, and we should have some feedback from the bench and Judge Espinosa after the June 30th date. Those are just a very skim through version of the slides I have. I can provide some responses to those updates, but also have hiring and recruitment here. Deanna Carlisle is here, who can answer questions around the hiring and recruitment status of the department as well.
Thank you very much. I want to begin with a bit of a positive note and some appreciation. I understand over Mother's Day weekend, for the first time in recent memory, all of probation's facilities hosted visitation with hugs at the beginning and end of the visits. I think, and no doubt, due to Supervisor Hahn's advocacy, and I'm sure she had a role in making that happen. When you were here last time, however, I stress that we want to understand what the specific metrics, as you see them, are for showing progress and turning around our probation department. Today's presentation hints at metrics for hiring, but I didn't really see metrics in terms of services, population numbers, suitability, or decarceration. So I think it's important that we really understand what success means and how you're defining it, given the challenges that we face. So have you identified metrics for success in those categories? And if so, what are they?
Yes, thanks for that question, Supervisor Horvath. And just first, before I get to that question, I want to thank you for acknowledging the Mother's Day visits. It was an incredible opportunity for our staff to engage with the youth while they were receiving their parents there. We also provided surveys to the parents after the visit. Each one of our facilities provided either a roses for the parents and or individualized, personalized cards to the parents. So it was very emotional for the youth, the parents, and quite frankly, our staff, that they're actually getting an opportunity to witness this. So more to follow on that. We know that this is the way forward. Absolutely, we believe in the engagement of the hug being a positive benefit for not just the youth on that day, but the days following. Looking forward to those going forward. Supervisor Horvath, on the question on the metrics, the chief has utilized the depopulation plan as trying to lower the population and spread the population across the facilities, at the same time looking at better ways that we can have efforts in quickly placing our youth. And we have a number of teams that work in placement, that work on IDC. If I could just back up a little bit as far as decarceration efforts, on the statistics that we receive monthly on how many youth we do intake on a monthly basis, from the month of September to April of 2020, September of 2025 to April of this year, we have had 665 opportunities where we redirected the local law enforcement to cite out the youth. So we believe that is a number that does not also get captured enough. Certainly, we would like for it to be higher, but there are some legal mandates that require us to take the youth in on intakes, specifically 707B offenses. But once the youth are in our care and our custody, what does the process look like for finding suitable placement quickly? There's a number of things that we have to work with also on the court on that, to getting approval for making those decisions. We are meeting with the court to have very, I think, good discussions about discretion around bench warrants and warrants that are of low-level offenses that may be an opening for another metric for us to cover. The other aspect around our female youth with the Ending Girls Incarceration Initiative, we're working very closely with OICR and Just Solve, the partner with OICR. We have developed a framework that was provided to us by OICR and Just Solve as a working model where we have a dedicated team of 4 staff that are working towards EGI with Beloved Village and Young Women's Freedom Center for placement of our youth. It is still very early in the process, but we have a very enthusiastic group around that process. This Friday, we have another meeting with the EGI initiative and OICR to discuss some of the models that they have seen both here in the state of California and nationally on things that we could adopt. And one of those practices that they have continued to bring forward is on the discretion around bench warrants for youth, for suitable placement. So
Well,
that's just
I'm clear that you're using the depopulation plan to guide that work. I think it would be helpful for us to understand what metrics you're using to establish what you expect population and service delivery and suitability, all of these issues that we are constantly challenged with and asked about, how you are defining what's suitable or what appropriate level of services, what the population you expect, and given the options that you have, I think understanding if we're meeting our metrics and helping manage expectations, because I do think there was a directive from this board to decarcerate young women, and now we're at a higher number than when that directive came.
Yes.
So I think really understanding what it is you think the goals are that you're trying to meet, because I think there remains a disconnect on that. I think this board also unanimously directed probation to immediately transfer to DYD unspent funds reserved for services to support CSEC youth. And that is after probation itself reported unspent, unclaimed, or unallocated CSEC funding. And I think personally, it's very frustrating and disappointing that those funds, which probation itself told the board existed and were unspent, have not been transferred. So do you have a timeline on when those funds are going to be transferred?
I think the chief has indicated that he is supportive of making that transfer. I think the question that he wanted to have answered, and I know he's not here, so I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think and we've had very good conversations with Mr. Carroll and Taylor from DYD around the transfer of that. I think that his question remains is the legal authority to transfer state funds over to another entity that were maybe earmarked specifically for probation. I think that's one of the questions he wanted to have answered through county council.
Well, one of the reasons that we are so adamant about it is because of what's going on with this unit. I understand that nearly the entire staff of the CSEC unit, probation CTU, was changed after the motion that the board considered. The director was moved, most of the staff are new. It's our understanding several of them are new to CSEC work entirely, so they are not trained or qualified to issue the court reports necessary to serve these youth. It's incredibly troubling to us. And at least in my office, these new staff will require significant onboarding, training, and support as they learn this specialization. And it's difficult to understand how this restructuring was designed to improve the CTU's operations or better support trafficked young people when it's now staffed with people who have no familiarity with it. If probation feels it needs to divest from this work because of more critical needs elsewhere, that's all the more reason I would expect that funding identified in our April 7th motion be transferred immediately. I understand you recently put in place a strike team to get into compliance at LP in advance of the next major BSCC inspection. So where did the staff serving on the LP strike team come from, and what units have effectively been deprioritized in favor of the strike team?
Supervisor Horvath, I hear you on all of that, and I think there's no greater at-risk population than the CSEC population, and we need to place emphasis on that. When the CTU CSEC team was reorganized, they went from 3 employees that were on the team to 8. But to your point, I don't know the experience level that the team that was brought on, but they do have many more than they had initially. So I need to look into the experience level of the team that was created in this in the CTU model. The strike team, there was 2 directors that came from the field. We did also get a director from CSEC for her experience with facilities. So and there is also 2 directors from the facility itself that are tied to the model, and 1 special assistant from outside of the unit.
So from my vantage point, it means CSEC was deprioritized, and I appreciate, and that's why I think my definition, my request about definition of metrics is so important. It's not enough to just staff up a unit if nobody knows how to operate it and knows the particular needs of our CSEC youth. We're not going to be able to meet what it is that we need to serve them with in order while they are in our care. So have you explored a strike team with the goal of lowering the population?
Don't know that that's been a conversation that we've had. This model that we're using now was specifically designed around the upcoming BSCC inspection of Los Padrinos before August 14th, which was ordered by Judge Espinosa. But I know this model is something that the chief is anxious to use as a model to transfer to other facilities and work around compliance and other areas that are identified for a metric that we can use to help with the de-incarceration.
On another note, just yesterday my team learned that visiting was shut down at Campus Kilpatrick because an incident in one cottage required moving staffing out of visiting. That means some youth may not have been able to see their families who went great distance to see them. Some families may have made the trek to Malibu only to have visiting canceled due to no fault of their own, which is incredibly troubling. It seems to me it's undisputably easier to get into suitability, to get into compliance where the population is lower and our youth are getting the supports that they need. But that doesn't seem to be happening despite the extensive changes that the department has made. And I really believe that's what needs to be the goal of this movement, not just putting people in different positions. So on decarceration, what are you doing differently in units responsible for decarceration and diversion? Or are we continuing what we have been doing?
I don't know that I can answer that completely to any kind of satisfaction today, Supervisor Horvath. I'd like to take a look at that. I know that we've been asked to look at who is working on decarceration efforts. I believe it starts with our IDC intake officers, where we have 10 officers assigned to that unit. And then it goes into our juvenile services, specialized units that work on suitable placement and the STRPs, and working with CDP for the electronic monitoring. There's a number of moving parts around that are occupied by officers working towards that end. But I just also want to address the issue at CVK on the visitation. We're very, very disappointed that happened, and it is a breakdown in our communication that we took a really appropriate action immediately around that. There were 6 parents who came in to visit. Each one of those parents was called personally by the superintendent to offer their apologies on that occurring, and also to offer FaceTime visits or also special visit during the week. We know how important those visits are, and we're very, very disappointed that occurred.
On the issue of decarceration, as with CSEC funding, it's not an issue from our perspective of money. For example, Young Women's Freedom Center was given a grant of $1 million from OICR to serve women and girls and specifically decarcerate them. Yet it is our understanding they haven't been able to maximize their services in the current structure. So I recognize our probation department and the youth in its custody and the staff that work in the facilities are undergoing unprecedented challenges. We can't let the difficulty of this moment prevent us from identifying and implementing ways to do better. And I think there are some significant challenges that, despite the movement that the department chief has directed, are still in a big, still in a predominantly challenged space. And so I have concerns about that, and I'll look forward to understanding better as you define what you see success as, what you think success will look like in the future.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you. Supervisor Barger?
Thank you. And Supervisor Horvath, I echo your concerns about the CSEC. I've worked with someone for a long time who's very familiar with what we've done, and they've communicated to me that there are some serious issues surrounding the CSEC population. And one example is protocols are not being consistently followed as youth are processed at Campus Kilpatrick. And I know that Supervisor Horvath asked it, but I'm actually going to take it a step farther. I want to know specifically what is being done and how it is being done effective today. Because this is something that this board, even prior to us being seated, invested a lot of resources in, and expertise, addressing this population, recognizing that many of those that have been trafficked are traumatized in a way that requires even more services and support. And I think it would be a crime for us to victimize once again a population that's already been victimized. And so I'm, again, and we can talk offline, but the people that have brought this to my attention, I trust with my life. They've dedicated their lives to this population, and that they are ringing the bell of concern concerns me. And so I also want to know what measures are currently in place to ensure that the specialized response for CSEC youth is maintained and that established protocols are not overlooked. And I know that Michelle retired and then was on 120-day, and that you all trained somebody, or that she trained somebody. And I'm hoping that this individual, and I apologize for not knowing the person's name, I hope they're getting the resources necessary to continue to carry that torch that Michelle carried.
Right.
Because she put LA County on the map, both state and federally, as it relates to how we work with this population. And I don't know if you want to respond or if there's anything you want to add.
Yeah, Supervisor Barger, yes, and I hear that bell very loudly about the importance of our CSEC population and the importance of the protocols and the intake, et cetera. From the onset, the director that you're referring to in there has been pulled into the strike team, and maybe in retrospect, that'd be something that we need to reconsider and go back to. And also, what I mentioned to Supervisor Horvath was on the increase in the size of the CTU unit, which in many ways can be a benefit, but we need to make sure that we assess the training and the skill sets that they have to make sure that there are understanding of the needs of the population from CSEC. One of the things that we have identified through working with Superintendent Binion and with Joanne Pera and the Star Court Judge, Judge Copps, on touring CVK is, and this is again a situation that you all understand that has been pulling at the department on staffing needs, et cetera, is that we need to move our IDC unit to CVK. And we've been working on training IDC officers to bring over to CVK, and we're just not there yet in a position to do that with the staffing needs. But I think that will help solve some of the issues around our CSEC. To make sure that they have the best training and initiate the immediate protocols that are going on when they're introduced into CVK. So we've also been working with Beloved Village and Young Women's Freedom Center around the predisposed youth at CVK for group counseling, and with ARC on the post-dispo girls at CVK for the same counseling.
Okay. Do you look like you want to say something? No? You're just, okay. You're just listening with anticipation. So thank you for that. I think this is dialogue that we're going to continue to have because, again, we've invested so much as a county into having a model in terms of how we work with those that have been trafficked, that it would be a crime or shame to have that all for naught.
Yes, ma'am.
So I look forward to working more on that. And then regarding mutual aid, I understand that the agency participation is voluntary. Are there specific reasons why more municipal police departments do not participate, even with reimbursable services?
Yes, Supervisor, the feedback that we've received from the County Chiefs Association has been resources, one, and then other priorities for their cities around that. And then another one that was raised was also the reimbursable overtime goes straight to their general fund and does not really benefit the department on the expenditure of the overtime for their officers. So those are the primary considerations. But I would say that having Deputy Director Darren Arakawa now on the team, he was a past president of LA County Chiefs. He's got a good reach into LA County Chiefs to really re-encourage them to engage in this MOU.
So what kind of impact would you say it's having when they don't engage? I mean, is your team feeling the effects of not having that mutual aid in place?
I'm not sure. And anecdotally, I'd have to say that yes, that we probably are feeling that, because that was really the idea of the chief, is to really encourage all of the 44 cities in the county to re-engage in this practice. Probation has always been a consideration for local law enforcement agencies on looking at their public safety and crime fighting strategies. So this is what was his intent to do that.
Okay, and then last but certainly not least, how is the placement of the mobile resource vans determined? And how frequently are they deployed, and what is the typical duration of their deployment? I'm trying to understand this program.
Initially that started with the closure of Santa Monica and Valencia offices. So we were trying to backfill into those communities with the mobile resource vans. That has kind of expanded now into a rotation across the county through every field office that we have in the county. Twice a month is the deployment. They're there all day, and they receive anywhere between 50 to 20 clients on each deployment. And we advertise that through our website and through the field offices. And that's currently the model that we've been using for now.
And how is that being received? What is the rate of clients that are utilizing it?
Well, yeah, we'd like to see more. 15 to 20 is a slow trickle, but the positive aspects of it is the face-to-face encounters in the field with them, meeting them where they live, so they don't have to drive all the way to another office, et cetera. So that has been, I think, a positive to it. And on another note, the 6 or 7 mobile resource vans that we received through a BSCC grant are going to be also wrapped with probation recruitment advertisement on there. So hopefully we'll get seen more throughout the county on the recruitment efforts here at LA County Probation.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I want to echo the remarks my colleagues have made about CSEC as well as decarceration. I focus a lot on decarceration in the past, so I won't repeat what they've said. Couple questions. I'm clear about the need to reassign field staff to the facilities to align with DOJ settlement requirements. My question is, how is the department tracking and evaluating the impact this shift may have on community supervision, service coordination for successful reentry, and overall outcomes for individuals who are returning home, as well as the broader community?
Right. Supervisor Mitchell, that has been the design of the reorganization of community supervision, where we took a tremendous loss of field officers into the facilities. But the model that the chief, again, is trying to reimagine is something that he believes is going to be a much more active engagement. And that's something that we're going to have to track. We're going to have to track those first home visits within 30 days as a metric, referral services provided, and then also have good follow-up feedback surveys from our clients on the type of services that we're providing for them. So there are metrics that he is asking of our Deputy Director over Field Services to create, and he's also asking him to create a one-page newsletter, for lack of a term, that has the national model practices on that, and then what the new LA model looks like. And that will include what the metrics are going to be.
That'll be helpful. Will the metrics include tracking kind of coordination and supportive services that other departments are providing individuals on supervised probation? Because I want to make sure that we're ensuring coordination. So
Yeah.
will the metrics include
Absolutely.
that kind of data tracking as well?
Absolutely, yes.
Next, unrelated question. Among youth currently in the facilities, how many were admitted with a low LAD score? LADS is the LA Detention Screener. And of those, do you know how many of those were non-707B kids?
Let me, I believe I have an April snapshot, if that'll give you at least a little bit of a picture. For the April intake, we had 175 youth that were taken in. 27 of those youth scored 3 and below on the LAD score. 27 of the 175.
Okay.
Of those 27, 10 were for 707B offenses.
Okay.
6 were for firearm possession, 4 CDP violations, 1 warrant, 2 suitable placement removals, and 4 overrides.
Okay, so of that list, how many of those were non-707B? That's my
6,
question.
10, 11, 13, 17.
17, thank you.
And I'll just go one step further. Of those 27, 8 were females, female youth.
Thank you.
So there is, if it's also, okay, Supervisor Mitchell, there is no policy determining the IDC detention decision scores, but what they have used in the practice of the LAD scores being scores between 0 and 3 are considered low,
Okay.
4 to 7 are medium, and 8 to 12 are high.
Got it. And just a side request, if we can get an updated call-out report. My team and I were confused based on the data on the call-out report. The number, the math wasn't mathing
The
for us.
call-out?
So if we could get
Okay. Was that for our sick calls?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so we may need to just circle back with you to make sure that we're understanding how you're reporting the call out. So that would be helpful for us.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Supervisor Hahn?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and certainly appreciate everyone who's here. And I don't know, I know I'm only one voice, but I feel like we might want to reevaluate always having all the other departments sitting here all day. I mean, we got doctors that are sitting here all day, and I would like to reevaluate that and why that we feel like that's necessary every time we have the global presentation.
Yeah.
Personally, that's how I feel. And I know the chief had some personal problem, but I definitely think if the chief of probation's not here, I say that also kind of gives a pass to the other ones. That's just how I feel. I just feel like you guys have huge departments that you're responsible for, and you're always there, and that's part of what we were all doing. We were all leaning in with this department because it was so troubled that we wanted all of our departments to be, on the ready. But I just don't know if that's necessary for these global. That would be my. I would like to excuse.
Yeah.
I say if you're a doctor, you can.
Okay, the back row, you all can get up. It's good. We don't need, Michael,
Yeah,
you don't need to be here. It's
yeah.
okay.
And in the
Right.
future, even I think they might send their
So you're,
Chiefs or something.
you're excused.
yeah. I mean, you
I
got,
want DHR to stay because
yeah, I know they like. I just think they have huge departments, and by the way, we're appreciating
Yeah.
how you've leaned in to the probation department because we're all trying to solve this problem. I'm uncomfortable having them. Okay, I just
Supervisors,
I
the
just
chair?
miss them.
Supervisors Rodney Collins, Department of Human Resources. Chair Solis, there's also a closed session matter. So I assume the same would go for
Yes.
the point that.
That's how I feel. But I'm only one voice.
No, it's fine.
I'm only
I'm
only one voice.
Go ahead.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about recruitment a little bit because I know this department, you're really leaning into recruitment because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's always a staffing issue. It seems like all the problems kind of fall under that category. And recruiting new probation officers, I know you're doing hiring fairs, you're doing outreach to veterans, you're continuing to push out social media campaigns. I mean, I think we're trying to do everything. One of the issues that has come up to me from some probation officers are that we're limiting the application pool, and I know this was a thoughtful policy decision that we require a bachelor's degree to become a probation officer, because I know we've been talking about. It's not just recruiting bodies. We want to recruit the right kind of people to ultimately look at the whole culture of this department. But just getting a bachelor's degree doesn't necessarily make you that good person. So is there, and I guess our other law enforcement agencies like Sheriff's Department just require high school diploma, which I think we used to do in probation. So are you... is the department open to looking at either doing away with the bachelor's requirement just to see, what our pool of candidates would be? Or another thought that wasn't my idea, it came from someone else, that maybe we hire somebody with just a high school diploma, and if this is still important to us, we give 5 years to get your bachelor's, just as an incentive. And I guess, and the idea is to increase our pool, because it just still seems like it's limited on who we're recruiting from. What say you?
Good afternoon, Deanna Carlisle, Human Resources for Probation. Yes, we actually are in discussions right now with DHR and with CEO, Class and Comp, to look at expanding and maybe looking at a program where people could, if they have 60 units or more, perhaps we could assist with educational pursuit to get them to that place. We're still in preliminary discussion on that, but it is something the department is reviewing right now, actively.
Yeah, so that would be like, yeah, community college. But I just think, again, we're putting all of our hope and faith in a bachelor's degree. Like that makes you, again, you have the right culture to deal with young people. That doesn't necessarily equate to that. So I know I would be interested in looking at you loosening that up a bit or compromising or something to see if we can expand our pool of applicants.
Yeah, we're in active discussions currently, and that is what's being talked about is how can we support the education of our existing staff, because we do have a number of staff that came in prior to
Right.
this change
Right.
that, we'd like to continue working for us and
Right.
providing those. So how can we support the staff? How can we structure this in a way that's really going to be, as you said, meaningful and open up that pool a little bit?
Right.
For us?
I would really be interested in seeing that. And then when it comes to, I know it's recruitment and then retention is part of our problem as well. And I've heard, and which I'm sure you've heard too, Bobby, that, officers kind of wish that they had a more consistent schedule. And so that they could plan their lives, they could spend time with their families. And is there an opportunity to better coordinate staff schedule so that you can have the staff needed to run the facility safely, and also the probation officers could have a better work-life balance? Because we've heard it's sort of a catch-22, right? They don't want to come in because they're afraid they're going to be held over, and so they call out because maybe this weekend there was a wedding or a graduation or a soccer game. So is there any looking at giving more consistent scheduling of our probation officers?
I think we always start with that, Supervisor. We're trying to give them advance notice of what their schedule looks like. I mean, of course, everybody would love to have that perfect schedule. The double-edged sword for us on that is that even if it is a perfect schedule, there's still potential that they're going to be held over because
yeah.
of the issues that we're having. And Supervisor Mitchell asked for us to take a look at that data that was reported on sick calls and no-shows, and we're remedying through that right now. But on the positive note of the sick calls, though, is we've seen a decrease from Barry J and LP in double-digit numbers down to, I believe we're at 8%, and I believe the chief has cited that the national average around that is around 7%. So something is working, something is getting better. I mean, certainly we still have a ways to go, but if just people showing up to work can really take care of.
Of course, I mean, of course. Have you heard that from officers that they would like a more consistent schedule?
Yes, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that goes to the morale issue as well. And like you said, of course, even though you have a consistent schedule, things could change. But I do think that might go a long way into helping the overall morale and the overall feeling of, wanting to show up. So I would urge you to work on that and see if that's even possible. Okay. And then I think Supervisor Mitchell was also talking about the community supervision and the reassignment of the field staff. And I've heard that too, a lot, that we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. And how many officers do we currently have after the reassignments doing the work in the field? I don't know if you already said that.
I know that we have 100 plus or minus that are going to be dedicated to the field supervision work. That doesn't include those that are staying back in the office. We'll be using probation assistants in the office. We're also opening up the kiosk, and we're working on a plan.
And do you think currently is that enough?
Well, I think if they look at the caseload ratios, it's very. People can argue that it's not enough, and I think that's part of the problem. I think what we have to wait and see is the new model the chief is trying to incorporate in this home visit priority versus people coming to the office. So that is definitely a metric that we're going to try and capture.
Yeah, thank you. And I think Supervisor Mitchell also was touching on are we coordinating with other, and I didn't hear you specifically say it, but I know JCOD is one of the departments that I really think probation should utilize in terms of linking services for our probation clients out in the community. the Doors location, I know is a great, I think it's in Long Beach, is a great one-stop shop for field probation officers. So I would urge you to, if you feel like you're a little thin in the ranks out there in the community, I do know that JCOD, I feel like, is meant for that work.
Yes, they are. And they've been a great partner and a lot of engagement with JCOD.
Yeah. And, you know, just the other issue about and I know that the issue of reassigning field staff to the facilities, it was a decision based on our problems with compliance and DOJ. But I will just wanted to express my concern because when I go out to Las Virginias is my facility of choice where I go mostly, and I'm so impressed with the officers who have been there, are there, who are showing up. They are incredibly dedicated, and they have a great rapport with the young people. Right? They've gotten themselves into a trust relationship. And I fear, and they know the young people's names, and they really care about them a lot. I'm concerned sometimes when we have reassignments from the field to inside. They don't have that, and it's no fault of their own. And they do the best they can, but I'm just concerned every time we reassign field people that just is not their wheelhouse, if you will. They have a different set of skills, which we appreciate and we need. It doesn't necessarily translate to day in and day out inside one of our juvenile facilities. So, do you feel like the training when they get reassigned is robust enough so that they understand this? Could we do better?
Well, yes, first and foremost, we can always do better. But I think to your point on that, and thank you for mentioning that also about the staff, because I think that's often in my travels, I think I always try and start with that, because I think everybody hears all the negative stuff about people who are not showing up or not coming to work. But day in and day out, we have hundreds of employees who show up every single day with a purpose of caring for those youth. And I think that is translating to the people who are coming over. I believe in the last couple of iterations of the redeployment to the permanently assigned now, that people have come with a much greater attitude. And from my encounters, I've seen much greater attitude with the staff that are working there, and I think that goes to the credit of the people who have been there, and that is translating and getting passed on. But certainly to your point, we want to be better. We know it's important. And we also ask our supervisors and our leadership to model the way in having those constant conversations with the team in their travels. And we are seeing that starting to happen much more at all of our facilities.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, no, I make a point of making sure I shake their hands and thank them too. They deserve that. And thanks again. I know Supervisor Horvath brought it up about the Mother's Day and allowing them to hug without incident, I understand. So I appreciate that, and hopefully we can lean into that model and try to do that more and more. It's so important on both sides, both for the families and for the young people who are incarcerated. And, I love our young men at Los Padrinos, right? They found an assembly member, Isaac Bryan, to carry their legislation called the HUG Act. Got out of committee, and it is on its way, I believe, to become law in the state of California. So the more we can do before it becomes law, we'll be ready, and we'll end up probably being a model for other facilities throughout California, because it'll be a state law that will require it at all facilities. And if we do enough work on this side of it to see what the challenges are and what the successes are, I believe we'll be a model in how it can be rolled out throughout California. And I believe it'll be a good thing.
I do too. Thank you, Supervisor.
Okay, great. Rodney, thank you for sticking around, because I wanted you to go over the core metrics on hiring, because I noticed that it looks like it's up and down. And I want to know why, what's going on, what can we do to improve the folks that we actually get to graduation? And it seems like it drops off so much. So can you go through that, or whoever? Yes.
Sure, and if I could, Supervisor Solis, is there a particular slide or area?
Can you just go through it, start with go to 17? Well, just, we're looking at all these things, right? Contingent office offers, background, passing rate. Oh, I'm looking at 17, slide 17 and 18.
Okay.
So maybe go to 18. I think that would be helpful. Go to 18.
Okay, so contingent offers. So our core hiring metrics have to do with contingent offers, background passing rate, total hires, time to hire, academy graduation rate, and turnover 1 year after academy. We have some additional information in there as well. This slide that we're currently looking at is the background completion time. This is a portion of our overall background. It does not include medical, psych, and poly, but our overall metrics that we've worked on for the last 3 years now, we went from, when I started with the department, about 280-day background down to 85. Now, we do have a couple of challenges in the background unit. It's a small unit, and we're down a couple staff. So that impacted numbers a little bit in the last couple of months, but not significantly. Our overall total is at 94 days. We're working really hard to get it back down to that 85 goal that we have.
And do you find that because it's still a long time, that people that you may have offered leave because they got a job offer somewhere else?
All right,
Are
so
we
one
getting that
of the
feedback?
things we've done too is we've really worked hard to make connections with our staff, with our candidates throughout the process at the very front end. So some of the things I think Supervisor Barger brought up with recruitment is we're holding a lot of events to give people information about what the process is realistically, what to expect at every step. We go through the background. We have background investigators who talk about what the background process looks like, things like that. So we try and put that at the front end so that the candidates know what's going on. The reality is most of the time these candidates are applying for several jobs. And so, yes, I've heard other departments, including our own sheriff's department, say we're all focused on trying to be the first one to that end goal. But what we do is we do try and keep them informed every step of the way. Here's what's coming next. We're still excited to have you, answering questions, giving them a point of contact to keep that open. We think we're pretty competitive overall with our timeline, but I think as Chief Arcos said, there's always room for improvement, so we continuously circle back and look at ways we can improve that timeline.
And are these candidates, do they have varying degrees of education? Like high school, college, some college, or 4-year? What?
So currently, our hiring, our entry-level position is the DPO1 position for sworn, and that does require a bachelor's degree. But as I mentioned earlier, we are looking at exploring ways to work with people who maybe are close to a bachelor's degree or don't have a bachelor's degree. So we're working on a program. Hopefully, we'll be able to come up with something so that we can open that up a little. But currently, yes, a bachelor's degree is required for our entry-level
Minimum.
position.
So I know initially Chief Guillermo wanted us to go to that level because we wanted people that could have different backgrounds. So how can you tell us if we're going to the right schools, recruiting them, for example? Are they sociology majors? What are they? Or are they, political science, or what are they? Where does that fall? I mean, are we going to the right schools, first of all, and are we identifying those departments where we think that there could be a nexus? I mean, that's what some other departments do. We did that with the assessor's office. People who want to be, controllers or CPAs. I mean, I think we have to do better targeting there because you can do two things. You can go to a community college, talk to students there as well in some of these classes or whatever. We have good relationships with Rio Hondo and some of the other community colleges, and I would think putting that information there and saying, hey, and if you want to come work with us, we'll also have these incentive programs available. So you can transfer and go get your degree, eventually, if we start to look at those different levels of education skill. You can do that. That's the workforce training And I think incentivizing the students too, because right now a lot of students can't even afford to pay their tuition at a 4-year, right? That's a big barrier. But I think having those kind of recruitment plans specifically, and also thinking about the culture, because a lot of our our young people that are in our care are from Black and brown communities. What are we doing there? What does that statistic look like? You know, like, are we making a concerted effort without discrimination, right? I'm not saying that, but you go where the populations are, where those universities that have that high number of enrollees, and create that relationship. And that's something DHR can do, as well as your department and some of your own staff can do that.
So to address a few of your comments and input, we are working very closely with our contractor, with DHR. There's a program that the county is using called Handshake. Handshake specifically addresses college level applicants, and it allows us to really hone in to the candidates. Our qualifiers are a 4-year degree in a variety of areas. So yes, criminal justice is certainly one of them, but sociology, psychology,
Mental health.
there's a broad variety of degrees that we are currently,
Yeah.
reviewing and accepting. And we are focused in, we've seen some good metrics coming out of our current recruitment where we're seeing better alignment. So previously with the DSO and GSN, which required a high school degree and a certain amount of units, we were seeing about a 68% candidate match. Now we're seeing up in the 70s for our candidate match, meaning that the candidates that we're reaching qualify at a higher level because we're doing all of this front-end outreach, as I mentioned.
Okay. And I wanted to ask, just in terms of job offers and looking at your metrics on 19. So can you explain that, what's going on there?
Yeah, actually. So in 2024, we actually shifted our focus from the DSO GSN to the DPO1. We did that in November of 24. So 2025 is a mixture of candidates. We were closing out a list of candidates that we had for the other 2 positions, as well as now the DPO1 as the entry-level position. Now, it's still pretty early in 2026, but we've had 362 offers in the first 2 months. If we can keep on pace with that, which is certainly my team's goal in recruitment, the whole department's goal, we're actually going to be on pace to increase what we saw in 2025 and hopefully bring in even more contingent job offers during that time frame.
So the last one is, for me, is the total hires. So this is for this year. Does that look like, are we going to exceed 2025, do you think, or?
Yes, that is our goal. If we can keep the numbers that we're getting in for the contingent job offers, the applicants, we keep that match up at a really high match as far as the candidates being able to accept and go through our process, we should outpace 2025 if we can keep the numbers coming in consistently.
And then on academy graduation rates, 78%. Looks like
Yeah.
we did better in 2024.
So the academy graduation rates, we expect that these numbers are going to rise accordingly as we're able to put more people into the academy, as we get more people coming in. Our first graduating class, we saw 6 of 7 attendees graduate. We are offering, some of the attendees have to drop out due to personal reasons, things like that. We're actually bringing them back and trying to make sure that we get them through. Sorry. So, we're started academy versus graduated doesn't necessarily mean separated. Sometimes it can mean that they're continued. Because if you go to the turnover, which is the next slide, we're at a very, very high rate. Our turnover of new hires who leave after they complete the academy I really want to highlight this. For 26 is 0 currently. In 25, it was 21, but of that 21, 20 of those were the GSN DSOs, so that means they had started earlier. Only one DPO won. So since we opened up the DPO 1 recruitment in 2024, we've only had one DPO 1 leave within a year of starting. I think what that really speaks to is all the hard work that they're doing in the academy, to provide mentoring, training, support systems for these new staff, as well as, I mean, there's a myriad of factors, but it really is showing, I think, in our turnover for those new hires. It went from a very significant, we were very concerned with that, and we focused a lot of attention on trying to make sure that we mitigate as much as we can, and we hold on to those new staff, and we provide them support even after they leave the academy and they're in the juvenile halls. And we believe that that shows in that metric.
And how are we doing with the female ratio of applicants?
Our staff ratio.
Yeah.
So I don't have the numbers, but typically we're at about a 50-50. Sometimes we go as high as 75% female to 25% male. Our numbers are pretty good. In fact, some of the challenges come in with staffing appropriately in the juvenile halls for the males as opposed to for the females, because we do have very good alignment as far as, you know, our recruitment in all of the areas that we'd like to see. We very closely mirror our population in the county so that we can better support our clients.
Okay, I know I won't ask questions that my colleagues already asked, but I think I'm glad to hear that there's so much conversation, communication with the courts, with Espinoza, with everybody involved. It seems like that's been a big improvement, but we need to continue there, and then your ongoing meetings that you're going to have to see how we can try to get some reduction in their release for these young people. That can go a long way, and I commend you all for helping to engage with the parents of these young youth that are in our care. And I think you guys should be doing it for every holiday, not just Mother's Day, every holiday, because each kid, when I would go there, and I would go repeatedly to LP and Juvenile Hall when it was open, on any occasion, they love receiving cards or gifts or sports, things like that, sports items. I just think it lets them know that they're not forgotten, and even though they may feel isolated, that we as a county care about them, and I think you do have the budget to do that, so I would strongly recommend that and make sure that happens more regularly, and that you have some kind of form of, I don't know, used to be a probation group, some musicians that got together and they would play on Sundays for the parents, a little ad hoc group, that would just, it's just to distract people, to get their mind off of having been there